Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 24 of the InkPod podcast. Today, we are joined with Nicole Pape, who's the CEO of Embellishr. Thank you very much, Nicole, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Should be
It's
fun.
going to be a good one. So, Nicole, obviously, you're not new to the industry, but new in terms of your company, but you have deep roots within our industry. Do you mind just maybe talking high level about how you got into the industry and how that's kind of evolved for you over the years?
Totally. High level, at school, UCSD down in San Diego years and years and years ago. And I was at school for visual arts and art criticism and theory and needed a job. My roommate had a job at Reebok right at the border, and it was their production facility. She was like, "Hey, you'd be good at customer service. You should come on over." Turns out I wasn't that hot at customer service in my very early 20s. I didn't like being told that, you screwed up my uniform on the phone. So my managers really liked me, and they were like, "Hey, like, we like you. Do you find like there's anything else at our facility that you would like to do?" And I was like, "Yeah, those guys that are in that one part of the warehouse with like these screens and like paint and stuff." I can't believe I said paint at the time. And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's screen printing. Do you want to work over there?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to try it out." And so they, put me in the screen print department where I threw my Apple iPod headphones on that had the big strings on them all the way down, and had my iPad going, or my iPod, and listened to music. And I reclaimed screens 8 hours a day for like months on end maybe, and went to school and was bartending at night and decided like, hey, I actually really like what those guys are doing. Can they show me? So they started showing me how to screen print. I'm 4'11", so they had to have me stand on a milk crate on a Riley Hopkins so I could, actually have some power behind my pole. But, started screen printing there and really kind of cut my teeth in like what this industry was. I saw cut and sew, tackle, twill, everything going back and forth over the US-Mexican border every day. And so it was just really interesting to me. And as I was in college, I was really also focused and interested in modern art and Roy Lichtenstein and like the overall, silk screen of the 60s and things like that. So it kind of was like something that felt like a good synergy. And I ended up moving to Los Angeles to finish my degree over at UCLA. And when I did that, I kind of found myself into some other screen print facilities, kind of working around autos and Fanatics, MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, like all of it. And just kind of like feeling like, I really, really enjoyed the overall dynamics of what I was seeing every day. The cut and sew lots going straight to the dye house at 6 a.m., coming back by 9 a.m. We're printing it, we're sewing it together. I mean, it was a very intricate process, and I really thrived in that environment. And so I decided that like, hey, like we live in downtown Los Angeles. There's all the textiles all around us. I would love to open my own little silkscreen boutique. And so I did, and started printing in my loft for hours on end. I think 24 hours a day I printed and made zero money for quite some time. And, found myself in weird niches, just having my business name. I started my business, it was called Production 22. And in Los Angeles, anything that's labeled production actually kind of correlates more to the movie and film industry than it does to the textile world. And so I'd get phone calls constantly for production equipment. Hey, do you guys have these booms? Do you have these lights? And I'd be like, I'm a silkscreen person. Oh my God, we need somebody to print blah, blah, blah. And so I'd find myself on the phone with HBO, Playboy, like random stuff that I started kind of venturing into, and started printing for Playboy. A lot of my prints were on their front cover of their magazine, actually. And so, I kind of ventured from there over to making a entrance into Ryanette at the time. I think it was like 2009, 2010. Ryanette had a facility in Los Angeles, and Ryan Moore offered me a role as the manager. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take it. I want to learn more about the overall distribution of all these supplies that I deal with every day. And started teaching screen printing classes. About 40 students every 2 weeks would come in, and I would teach them with Ross Hunter, actually, who's the president of Rock now. And so this is like old school stuff back in the day. And I actually got an offer from one of my students in class that I couldn't refuse. That was all cash to come work for her and start her screen print business. And she just happened to be a really famous porn star. So I worked in that industry for a little bit. I can tell you, I guess.
I might not know her, but just curious.
Her name is Caden Cross. Well, that's her stage name. I won't give out her real name. And her man's stage name is Manuel Ferrara, who happens to be probably the most popular porn star in the world. And so I saw a lot of interesting stuff nonetheless, and was printing some risque pictures onto shirts and little thongs and things. And it just kind of kept going, and I decided, like, this is great. We had a line in Kitson, we had a line in Nordstrom's together. Honestly, it just kind of kept snowballing into me doing other stuff. So I got pulled from her over to a very large commercial printer in San Francisco and moved my husband and I up there. I became a managing partner in that business, and we ended up having 2 facilities. I think over a very short span of time, maybe like 2 years, we were able to go from 6 million to 2.9 million in revenue, and had a facility in the Bay Area and then a second one in Reno, Nevada. And so I had 150 employees. They were great. But when 2020 hit, I saw an opportunity that I couldn't refuse to sell my shares, and I got out. So from there, I got my real estate license. And I sold a lot of homes out in Reno in 2020, about 25 million worth in 9 months. And then got brought on at Rock US as a sales executive, worked as their channel manager, learned the ropes of the distributors. And with my knowledge of the last years past and screen printing and being around automation and manual and you name it, and then going over to Portugal multiple times and seeing just overall CNC and how all the presses are made, I kind of really cut my teeth for what I do today now. So yeah, that's a brief overview of my life.
That's an awesome story.
Nice. And the company you sold with the all the automatics is still in business?
It is. Yeah, it downsized after I left. It kind of went through an ebb and flow. It was a very niche market for us. We did everything same day courier. And we were working with the corporate tech market. So I'm talking Facebook, Google, Instagram, YouTube, and all of their campuses were within a 50-mile radius of us. So we were just constantly servicing the Salesforce campus or whatever tech campus. On top of that, when we opened our second facility out in Reno, that became more of our sports licensing facility, which is really where my background came in a lot. And we worked with Adidas, Nikes, Fanatics, Outer Stuff, you name it. So I've dealt with CEOs flying in to peons flying in to see their press check in person at midnight, hot market, tons and tons of hot market, lots of shirts that we printed that got burned, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. That must hurt a little bit. For our listeners that don't know exactly what hot market printing is or how that works. I mean, if you look at like sports specifically, if it's the Stanley Cup finals and you got 2 teams that make it, they basically want to have shirts to start selling immediately. Sometimes even in the stadium or just start shipping that night. So, hot market printers, they basically print for both teams or embroider for both teams. And whichever team loses, they usually on fire. So must be painful because it's like, oh, there goes all the work, but at least you're getting paid on it, right?
You get paid on it, but it's still super painful. It's really wasteful. A hot market is something that hurts my heart. I understand it. I'm a 49ers fan when it comes to NFL, so I understand these things, how they operate, how they work, but it is painful to watch the amount of waste that the fashion industry can create very quickly overnight. Hundreds of thousands of units from coast to coast to millions of units that could be burned. it would be like, quarter one of the Super Bowl game. And it's like, you know what, Broncos are up, start printing Broncos. And you have Broncos on a certain amount of presses and Miami Dolphins on another round. And, oh, you know what, Broncos are down, start Miami up. And so it would just do this balance until like fourth quarter where we're all just watching the game at this point. And I've got massive TVs and the production, everybody's rooting. It doesn't even matter who wins. Like, let's figure it out. Let's print all night. It's actually a lot of fun. And then the couriers would start showing up at midnight. At midnight, every 15 minutes, you'd have Dick's Sporting Goods, you'd have Shields, you'd have whoever showing up to pick up all of their stuff. And that went on throughout the next day. So we'd have pallets and pallets of stuff that we've already printed that we'd hold on to, throw it on a container, and that container was going to go get incinerated. Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
That's a crazy story. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I have a couple clients like, Top Threads and Catalyst, which is Gorilla Bones. They do a lot of hot market printing up here. So, yeah, I mean, it's very rare that the Leafs will make it to a final or even semifinal.
Yeah, exactly. So when we get the chance.
Not too much Jays stuff getting burnt up or the Leafs, but yeah, cool. I mean, that's kind of it's a topic that I wasn't planning on touching on, but our whole industry and how much waste there is, right? Whether it's hot market printing or just massive, POs that are being submitted by retailers and then they don't sell them and then they destroy them. I mean, that's one of the cool things that the DTG and DTF kind of is revolutionizing the space, not carrying inventory, printing as needed, being more conscious of waste. We have retail stores, for example. We have one huge Japanese retailer, and we basically sold them brother machines, and the brother machines are inside of their retail locations. Actually, I could say it's called Uniqlo. So it's a big Japanese retailer. I mean, they don't hide the machines, so I don't think there's a confidentiality there. And basically, they'll have like all their licensed shirts, and they'll have one small, one medium, one large, one extra large. And the second that they sell one, it gets sent over to the brother machine, and they reprint that one shirt and they put it back on the shelf. So they're really lean, and and it also allows them to be quick. So if there's some trends that are coming up, it's like, okay, boom, let's jump on this, let's jump on that.
They try it out.
So that's one of the cool things that I think digital's making, whether it's DTF or DTG, is I think really being more conscious of the environmental impact. You don't have the sheer volume. Like, it's not like you could print hundreds of thousands in like a week in a facility like you can screen printing if you had a shop your size. But I think that's something that's really important that our industry needs to focus a little bit more on. And Sean's really gone digital in his shop as well. I don't know if you're familiar with what Sean's running at his place, but he used to be a traditional screen print shop.
Yeah, we used to do a lot of screen printing, and we still do, but it's just the volume of digital, whether it's DTG or DTF, has gone up tremendously. And I guess that's the side of our business as well that we try to market. We're going more print on demand and more e-commerce website. So that's just the orders are coming in. And even though it's like 150 unit order with a 6 color front, we're not going to screen print that. We're just going to DTF it. And then we're going to use our stampinators to do that bulk, right? So it's a lot more efficient, enable us to be more profitable. But yeah, it's a nice switch in the industry. And I think screen printing is always going to have its place, but it's just, the industry is just changing, right? And it's enabled us to have higher margins for lower quantities and still make a profit, even though the pricing is lower than what it was before it's screen printing. Even though before you wanted to sell a 12 shirts or 5 shirts or 6 shirt with screen printing, you would sell them super expensive. They weren't really buyable, but you still lose money making them. To where now I can sell 5 shirts, 6 shirts and make really good profit off of them and still be decent priced. So it's not super expensive like it was because of those equipment. So I think the industry is just changing, but yeah, it's fun.
The industry is becoming more sustainable for what your business owners need, right? If you can diversify into other revenue streams in your business and still offer your clientele the quality and the turn time and, price points that they really need, then, as a business, you're kind of hitting a home run, and it's only going to exponentially grow from there.
So what made you, after all that going through everything and printing for the hot market? What made you want to start Embellishr?
So, when I was working with Rock US, it was great, but I was finding that there was kind of a niche in the industry where people were calling in. They were like, hey, I want to upgrade to that new item. I really do, but I need to sell this thing first. And I don't know where to sell it or how to sell it. And at that point, it's not necessarily the new manufacturer's model to figure out how to sell somebody's old stuff to help you upgrade, and there's not great trade-in programs out there. So I had a client that I sold a really nice press to, great guy, super famous rodeo star. And he called me one day, and I was actually in Texas, and I was at a trade show, and he's like, ma'am, can you please help me? I really need him. Can you please help me? I really need to sell this. Like, we wrangle cattle all day. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with this stuff at this point. And I was like, I don't know. They say to just go on Facebook or something and post it yourself. And he's like, I did that. It's not working. I said, you know what? Let me see what I can do. And I just sold his press. I mean, within 2 days, was able to call him. And I just was like, man, I was able to do you a favor. That's awesome. I'm super excited for you. And he was like, what do I owe you? And I was like, nothing. I'm just excited for you. And he was like, no, what do I owe you? And I was like, I don't know, whatever you want, I guess. I was so confused. But I kept getting those kind of calls. And I've been entrepreneur basically in my own right since I was out of the womb. Both my parents are business owners. My mom owned a manufacturing furniture plant in Los Angeles. So I grew up in textiles and things like that. And I always knew that rock, I didn't want it to necessarily be like a stepping stone, but I knew that I was going to want to do more. And I would ask to do more, but it wasn't necessarily reciprocated. So I decided to jump ship. And December 2022, I started Embellishr. And I started it alone. I had no idea what I was going to do. It's Christmas time. I've got one press that some guy wants to sell. And if I can sell this one press, it can help feed my family. I've got a child at home, and my husband was a software engineer for a large company, and he's just doing that. And he's like, honey, go do it. You've already done you for years. Do it. And so with the backing of my family, I said, fuck it. And when I started, I just kind of fell into being like the rock lady, where people would call me and be like, hey, I got a rock. I heard you're the person. And Embellishr has kind of grown visibility. With branding and marketing and such. We've moved probably about, I want to say, close to 250 machines since December 2022. And we've grown as a company, grown our services completely to be comprehensive. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I started it.
Great.
Thanks.
And I mean, obviously, your focus up until now has been, used equipment. And when I started at RB Digital, we never bought back used machines, very, very rarely. Whether it was, digital or embroidery, for many reasons. I mean, one, you often don't know what you're getting into, right? Especially from the buyer side. You see these guys who are posting their stuff online, and they're like, oh, I'm going to show the test prints for the Brother DTG machine. And then they just, purge the heads like crazy, and they do a test print, and you're like, oh, it looks great, and then, or the person that's going to their facility goes and buys the equipment, and then they know what to do. It's like, okay, print a print, but make sure there's no cyan in it because it's going to bend. You know what I mean? So there's this always massive apprehension for customers to buy used equipment direct from the end user. And, there was a big demand for customers saying like, hey guys, we're buying our third or fourth machine. We're comfortable that we don't need the warranty, or we're just starting out. We don't have the budget. And there was a lot of inquiry constantly for used equipment. So it's something that we got into, but, even with us, there's surprises. You go there, you do your tests on the Brother machine, everything looks good. And then you find out, once it gets back that, the maintenance station shot, and there's 3,000, or during transport,
I could
You
own
know,
one other company, it'd be that.
yeah, it's like the heads don't get locked in properly, and then there's head strikes during transport. It's scary, and I have a customer like literally 2 months ago. They bought a brother machine at auction for like $13,000. Brand new. It's 28. They thought they got a great deal, and then when they brought it back to our facility, it's like, okay, two new print heads, new maintenance station, couple boards. It's like, okay, here's the bill, 15 grand. And it's like, wow, 15 plus 13, brand new one's 28. It's like, should have just bought new. And that is always the risk. And I think that's why customers are willing to pay a little bit more going through a dealer and getting, the support and warranty and all that kind of stuff. So how do you kind of navigate those waters? Because you don't just buy locally, like you move presses around the world. Like, are you flying out to every machine that you sell and basically checking that it's good? Or are you kind of saying like,
No.
okay, we're going to sell it based on what you've told me needs to get fixed. And then if we find out that these parts, then it kind of comes out of your final pay. Like, how do you kind of navigate this?
Honestly, it's not glamorous moving used equipment, right? It's just not something that a lot of people want to do. For me, I remember years ago, I purchased a Sprint 2000 dryer from Jansport Backpacks, those backpacks from back in the day. I purchased one of those it was in Oklahoma. The guy tells me, I found him on Craigslist. He's like, yeah, you got to come out. You got to break it down. You got to get your own truck. It'll work. It'll work. I buy it. I get it back over to the Bay Area, set this whole damn thing up. It couldn't work for the life of me. I changed friggin' everything in this dryer to get it to work. And I just remember being like, oh, this investment was awful. And I mean, I needed a dryer and it was a good price. So, I made that decision. And a lot of people make that split second decision of I need this and I see it now. Well, when it comes to Embellishr, from my own personal experiences, what I try and do is provide more of a solution-based service. So what we do is we run a fair market value appraisal based on a 5-year tax depreciation schedule on capital equipment, first and foremost. Secondly, we require a lot of things for that. We require photos. We require operational videos of your equipment running for a certain amount of time with a certain amount of, dry operations, for instance, for a press. So no squeegees, no flood bars, no screens on press. I want to see all print heads running and I want to see it simultaneously indexing and I want to hear everything about that machine. It's the first step. Then we provide you your appraisal pack. And in your appraisal pack is, hey, here's what it depreciated to, here's the condition that we're currently seeing, and here's where the market is at with this kind of equipment as well. So you get 3-tier prices back from us, which we found to be a really successful thing for our sellers and our purchasers, to be honest with you, because it provides clear expectations for the sellers. Like a lot of sellers are like, hey, I got to get on my warehouse at the end of the month. Well, guess what? You're probably not going to sell XYZ for top dollar by the end of the month. But if we price it aggressively at tier 2 or tier 3, we're going to be able to move that guy and get you over, get everything out. From there, what we do is we will work with these sellers to pay off their liens. A lot of people do not even think about the fact that that equipment could be sitting under a loan under somebody else that may stop payment on it. And repoed out of you because there could be a paper trail. That is the reality. I just saw that happen in California about a month and a half ago. And it's really sad when that does happen because that person is completely out. There was no one covering that person. And so we will pay off the lien. We work with the seller and the buyer for a fair purchase price. And then what we do is we actually fly in our contract technicians who work on this equipment all the time. They're going to run an operational inspection on the equipment. We have a ton of touch points and every single ops check is the same. They go through the HMI, the print heads, the drive of the press, the gas consumption, all of that stuff, whatever the equipment is. And if we find that there's any parts that are deemed necessary for replacement or repair, that's where we connect with the seller upon our teardown saying, hey, here's the parts that we're going to be removing from your final funds that you receive. Our goal is to make sure that your equipment can go into somebody's new hands and they feel good about it too. They're not buying some crap from us. That is definitely not something I'm trying to represent. And so currently I'm on a teardown this week. I do not show up at the teardowns more than twice a year. But we're replacing the overall chain drive, the overall brain, the heart, the skin of this machine. Like we're really going in, but this is a 6-figure machine. So it's really, valuable to our buyer and to our seller to make sure that we're doing our due diligence. And we can also then stop a teardown. If we're on site and a press or whatever equipment, folding line or a claim unit, an LTS, whatever it is, if it's not in good operational order, we put all of the money in an escrow account. So we can refund our purchasers. We keep everything very secure. And we don't just pay out the seller right away. So, it's really like a nice like synergy, I would say.
Yeah.
And then we offer everything like insured dedicated freight, which I always recommend. People want to get partial freight. They want to do box truck. They want to pick up their own U-Haul. Listen, guys, this stuff gets damaged. It does. I could not implore people more to just go with insured dedicated freight. That means it's load to ride. It is A to Z. It does not come off your truck. And then we also offer installation and training. Because of how I've built it up over the last year, installation and training has been something that we've started to offer in 2024 and has proven to be successful, has proven to have little pain points that we're trying to figure out. And we've got some great purchasers that work with us when those things happen. But, as any company and any small business, as you are growing, you are also trying to improve. And our goal is to constantly improve our process. So I would say that that's, we're here to vet your premium pre-loved equipment.
Yeah. Just touch on a couple things. I mean, one with the shipments. I mean, we've gone in, we had a Tajima earlier in the year, 8-head Tajima, really nice unit. And it was it went into a depot and they literally drove a forklift straight through the heads, like completely shot. And again, we have insurance, right? And even when you're insured, it's not easy to get paid. It's like you're talking sometimes 3-6 months. I got to keep this busted up machine in a showroom. So even that is hard to get paid. But if you're not insured, forget it. That's a complete disaster. One of the other things I think is so valuable that you guys are providing is actually teaching people how to screen print, having that as an option. That was our biggest advantage and how we earned the exclusivity with M&R, because we actually hired screen printers who became technicians. And the service that we would offer is like, not only will we install it, we're there to support you. You don't have to wait for our service technician to get scheduled. And we'll actually teach you how to screen print. I literally had a customer 3 weeks ago reach out to me. I unfortunately lost a deal, and I don't lose many of them, and it really upsets me when I do, but it was a customer that didn't have space for a compressor, and he bought a unit that had the new Rock that has the built-in compressor.
The Rocky.
Yeah, I even offered, I said, I will buy the compressor for you and put it in. Anyways, long story short, I said, look, our service, you buy a lot of other machines from us, we're going to take care of you and treat you how to use it, because he's coming from manual. And he called me 3 weeks ago and he's like, hey, my white prints are taking really long. Like, we're cycling it through twice. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, we print the white and then we flash it and we run it all around the press and we print it a second time. I'm like, dude, just like print 2 screens. He's like, well, we don't know how to line up the 2 screens. And I'm like, well, then you obviously were not trained on how to use the machine. Like, just going through the interface is not teaching someone how to use a unit. And, he's basically like, hey, like, okay, can you come teach me? I'm like, well, did you call the other rep? He's like, yeah, they said they don't teach how to screen print. I'm like, okay, well, I'll send a guy, but we charge $130 per hour. And this is exactly why I told you to buy the press off of us. So I think adding that, personal touch of like, let me understand your business. Let me know where you're falling short. What do you need to improve on? And offering those installation services, I think, are so important to being successful as a dealer.
I agree. It has been, like I said, a huge learning curve for us because, I started as a manual printer. Like, I breathe screen printing, to a certain extent. And when I had my operations where we're larger and we're 14 autos and stuff, it's still the same stuff. It's just a different process. But, it's hard to like learn what you don't know. And this industry can be very secretive. I
Yes.
had to learn a lot of stuff on my own. I had to fail a hell of a lot of times on puff prints to get them right, and when it comes to us training, we're realizing that that's a super big need is startup training. And it's not enough time to even train somebody in a 3-day period. Like, hey, here's how you build out a darkroom. Here's where your emulsion goes. Here's how we're coding screens. Let's talk about artwork. I mean, you're teaching business to somebody. And so there isn't a great tool for that yet. And we're like, honestly, this is real time for us right now, going through this stuff, trying to support our clients and support the fact that we understand, you were a car wrapper and you decided you're just going to throw screen printing onto your revenue stream right now and had no idea the build out and the compressor and the chiller and all of these things. So this morning, for instance, I hired an electrician. He's a licensed electrician. He's going to come onto our team full time to really support our business owners in making sure you have the right electrical specs, making sure that you're set up prior to our technician ever arriving on site so it's not an issue. And then we can really focus on the needs that you have. And there's technical training where let's go over the functionality of the machine, the HMI, let's, print a job and I'm on my way. And then there's actual startup training, which is much more thorough, much of a longer process. And honestly, we're trying to be as equipped as possible, but I would say we're not even that equipped yet to do what I want to do with it. So it's an ever evolving like improvement for our company right now to help support that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a hard thing to do. I mean, to teach someone how to screen print, I mean, you could spend 2 or 3 days just teaching someone how to make a proper screen, from start to finish. So, when customers get into screen printing and they're like, okay, like, and they're green and they're like, okay, Zach, I have my press coming. I have jobs lined up. Like, I need to get installed right away. It's like, dude, this is not a DTG machine or a DTF where it's like you set up the profiles and you press print. Like, I was in a shop a month and a half ago. They've been printing for 30 years. Very big contract shop. They literally tape off the entire screen on both sides except the image. They coat out in the open. They literally are using a graphics emulsion and coating one-on-one with the sharp side of the squeegee. They had zero stencil. They don't use palette tape. So every hour, they're using premium flash adhesive for everything, including hoodies, and then having to stop the presses every hour and wipe off the gunk. So I got my tech going there today, believe it or not, to teach them how to use palette tape and the right adhesives. And they've been printing for 30 years and have 6 autos. Screen printing is not something that, can you pick up and run with it? Yeah, but you're going to be dialing it in. Like, Sean is still dialing in his processes, I'm sure, on a quarterly basis and just pushing the envelope to get better and better. It's to say, hey, we're going to go in there and we'll teach you in 3 days and you're going to be a master of screen printing. I don't think that's the case. So really, no.
Yeah.
You got to basically go high level, show the basic concepts, walk through every single process, tell them, hey, shoot videos, whatever you got to do to remember this. And then it's trial and error. Like, they're going to learn, testing. I mean, they might get a job where they print 2 meshes of 157. They get this moire and they're like, hey, what is this? And then they call a dealer like me and be like, I know exactly what it is. This is the problem. This is how you prevent it from happening in the future. But again, if they call a dealer that doesn't even know how to screen print, it's like, I have no idea. Maybe it's your ink. And then they go into this spiral for weeks trying to figure it out.
Fingers, right? Like the industry will point fingers. It's the ink, it's the emulsion, it's the mesh, it's the press, it's your human, the squishy thing. And I think that I actually just had this happen with one of our clients who was like, your technician left and I'm lost. And I'm like, hey, the reality is you're going to have to take some accountability here as a business owner, and you're going to have to learn, have more trial and error over the next 2 months. There is a massive learning curve, which is what we've talked about, but there is I think, anticipation from a lot of people that it's like, I should be able to just do this right away. I want to make money. I have an investment in this. I need to make it back. But you have to be prepared that in order to make your money back, it takes money to make money. And in that takes money to make money mentality, it takes learning, it takes researching, it takes a network, developing a network, reaching out to people, being on forums, you know. I think that a lot of people try and just use people as speed dial, as the easy source. And those are the people that end up not being as successful in the industry. So, you know, I think it's the more that people can be accountable for what they're trying to accomplish, the more that companies like ours can also work together to help them get there.
I think that's probably why both your businesses are thriving and your guys are growing quickly, right? I mean, Zach, even though the company is super old since you got to the company, that mentality kind of not shifted, but has been embraced even more, right? And you guys are emphasizing that. And I think the growth has been shown in the last few years since you guys are really changing and going towards that direction. But I mean, how are you able to answer to all those questions as well as grow the company that is a small company in the sense like you guys have only been doing it for the last 2.5 years and you've installed and sold almost 250 presses. That's quite a lot, right? So how are you able to grow so quickly and manage it and have a great business mindset that you've been talking about, which is, I think you have a great vision for your company, where you want to go, the people, the way you want to sell it, the way you want to help people. I think it's going to grow automatically, but that comes at its price as well, right? It's having to go through fast growth and cash flow problems, team problems, but you still want to deliver the same quality that you aspire to. And like you just explained. So what's the process going through that? Maybe there's people that can relate, right?
Honestly, like right now, for instance, I'm at a huge growth phase of our company and it's cash flow. You know, cash flow is everything to all of us as small business owners to get to that next level, to be able to service people right. And so I really feel like as we are making waves, I'm finding myself out of balance in a lot of other areas. You know, you focus on one area and the other area suffers. And so what we're trying to do is really start hiring slowly, hiring the right people and making sure that they want to also be a part of this growth, because it's not easy building a startup. You know, I tried on some software that we were going to release for Embellishr at the beginning of the year. And I think I spent over 80 grand on that software that hasn't come to fruition. And that's just something I sit on and I think about late at night, those little things that keep you up. That's one of those things, but I know what I'm doing with it and I know it will come, but it's really challenging to find that balance, especially I'm a mom of a 7-year-old who half the time I'm like, shit, you got home from school 4 hours ago? Okay, hold on. Let's talk about your homework, dinner, you know, and I'm like, it's 8 o'clock and I'm still in my office. Like, you know, and he's coming out I have a shipping container on our property and he runs out there and is just like, mama, like, hi. I'm like, oh my God, look at the sun went away. And I thought I just dropped you off like an hour ago at school. Like, no. And so that's where I'm finding a challenge as CEO is how to represent what we want with integrity and service our customers without also losing my ass on myself, on the fact that, you know, I have a family and I know that our other clients also have those, you know, a family at home and the same kind of trial and tribulations that we have. So it's between that and cash flow where it's, you know, that dichotomy of the two, almost not like evils or like necessary evils, right? For your business to thrive. But I would say creating strong partnerships with banks has been a really great thing for us, you know, and helped our growth tremendously.
Yeah. I mean,
100%.
that even applies to my end users. You know, I had a client here the other day. You know, he was an immigrant to the country. He's been here for a while now. And he's, you know, his business is scaling. He's working really hard. He's had to be scrappy and buy used equipment that's given him lots of headaches. And he's like, man, I just want to grow. But he hasn't built any business credit or anything like that. So even though he has cash coming in, there's not enough for him to really invest in new equipment and step up his game. And, you know, I literally told him, I said, dude, it doesn't matter what you can get approved for. Let's say the machine's 30 grand and you can get approved for 6,000. Just start. like
Yes,
finance a heat
nailed
press. I
it.
know it sounds stupid, but
It doesn't.
do anything to start building a rapport with your lenders, because that was my biggest problem. When I first started, my family's Portuguese, and we have the old school European mentality: never go into debt, never borrow money, always pay for cash on everything, your car, blah blah blah. And we used to do that. I mean, we would buy, six brothers at a time from RB Digital, cut them a check for $250,000. And then I landed a huge account that was going to be millions of dollars a year in work. And we had to come up with, I don't remember the exact amount, but I think it was like 1.8 million USD. And that was for, DTG equipment. That was for like $600,000 worth of inventory. That was for dryers. And that didn't even include development costs that we would have to do the API integrations. And I thought, no problem. Like, we're going to get this loan. We've always paid for everything in cash. We don't owe a dollar to anybody. Our t-shirt suppliers are nothing. We always paid on the credit card. And then we go to buy, and they're like, no, 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 no. You got this all wrong. You paying for everything in cash messed you up. And now you have to do a personal guarantee, which is what I had to do. I had to put, a real estate property that I had downtown on the line. And then that just adds more stress to you in your business, because you're like, now it's not like, hey, I need my business to succeed. It's like, hey, I need my business to succeed. If not, I lose my personal assets, which is scary, right? So it just adds that layer of like fear and, worry that you don't need as a business owner, because you're already so busy just trying to make the business work. You don't need the extra anxiety. And so that's something that I always tell people. And when I look at the shops who generally buy in cash, generally it's the shops that don't have the financial business acumen to say, hey, it makes more sense for me to finance. The big companies, they look at it as like, hey, cash is king. Why am I going to drop $250,000? Who cares if I'm paying 10% over 6 years? It's tax deductible anyways. And if I take that $250,000 and put it in any mediocre investment over 6 years, if I haven't done better than a 10% return, my financial advisor is getting fired. You know what I mean? So I think that again comes down to education, right? And I try and educate my customer as much as possible and say, hey, why dump all the money you have? What happens if you have a bad quarter or a bad year? How do you stay afloat? Keep your cash, So it's something that not only do I sell a machine, I try and push them into, hey, look at this, even if it's just a little bit. So I think it's a big misstep, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, Sean,
I think a lot of Sorry, I was just gonna say, I think a lot of business owners don't know that, especially when they're first starting out. And banks don't really want to like deal with you if you haven't been in business for 24 months. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm gonna have to pay this super high rate because I haven't been in business long enough with the bank. So we're just gonna pay cash and we're gonna save up and we'll buy that in 6 months. Well, in the 6 month time span that you're saving up this money, how much revenue did you actually lose? Where did your profitability go? That's where there's needs to be a flip of the switch of like, you know what, we have to build business credit somehow. So by year 2, they're saying, hey, you guys are pre-approved for 250, no problem. Buy whatever you guys need growing.
Exactly.
And
they'll actually come to you and say, hey, listen, congratulations, you've paid off your lease. We're ready to give you $500,000. They're coming to give you, they're coming to give you money, right? Instead of you going on your hands and knees and begging. So I mean, I think at some point, Sean, it'd be even worth it for us to have like one of my leasing companies on here and just do a whole educational piece on why leasing or financing your equipment is so important, because again, it's something that's not touched on enough, I feel.
And Section 179, I mean, by the end of the year in the US market, I don't know if it's different in the Canadian market, to be honest with you, but for the United States, Section 179 is a great way to, invest in your equipment and depreciate part of its value by the end of the year. And the IRS really does offer a lot of advantages, tax saving advantages to business owners that do purchase capital equipment for their businesses, whether it's a forklift, a compressor, a chiller, a press, those are all depreciating value assets that you can then use to your advantage as a business owner and be more savvy. So yeah, absolutely.
I think in Canada, and don't no one quote me on this, but I think they passed something last year now where you could write off the entire amount in the first year. You used to have to do it over whatever it was, 4 or 5 years, but now you
Yeah.
can literally claim the entire thing and do a full 100% write off. So again, they're trying to incentivize Canadian businesses to reinvest in themselves, right? Not rely on importing from overseas. Just being more self-sufficient and vertically integrated. I think there's a big push from the Canadian government to do that. There's lots of programs out there. Like I know there's one now where you put down like 20% of the investment in cash, and then you can get up to like $250,000 on average is like the entry level tier from the government, and you pay it back over 5 years with like 8% interest, which is lower than if you were to go to some other lenders now. So yeah, I think that's something that we definitely want to focus a little more at some point. So so getting back to Embellishr, who's your ideal client? Like, do you deal mostly with startups, smaller businesses, or do you deal a lot with like, the larger companies? I mean, generally, once a company gets over a certain size, we usually see that they start wanting to grab new equipment. They're just like, we don't want to deal with the headaches, and that's kind of where we're at, and we have the cash flow, we have the business, and we're gonna write it off anyways. Like, who is your ideal customer, or the customers that you coming to you, like, kind of what's their customer profile look like?
The customer profile is both sides of the spectrum for us. We've got your startup from manual to auto. We've got, hey, I want to add a second auto and it's really expensive, and I think we could, add a second auto for less costs, with you guys. And then we've got your commercial printers that have 12, 24, 36, I mean, tons of automation that are just like, we just need another press. Can you ship it out? And they're just ready to go. Like, are there people that are absolutely going new? Yeah, of course. There's always going to be, I think, both sides of the market there and both sides of the spectrum of like, it's just easier for us, or we have a relationship. There's a lot of commercial printers that have a really good direct relationship with manufacturers, which I understand. But guess what? They'll still shop that pre-owned market. And so, quite frankly, between my experience of being a manual printer and understanding the nuances of starting that up and going to my first auto press, to having a decent amount of automation myself and dealing with the kind of clientele that I dealt with, I see buyers from both sides, both perspectives, and I love that. I think because I get to actually, from my passion, and my passion has always just been like higher realm of textile screen printing. I still like pinch myself sometimes of like, how did I really fall into this when I really thought I was going to be an art dealer in New York City? But our clientele is anyone and everyone. I really can't give you a fair buyer profile because we're experiencing it all.
And how do you reach out to new customers besides your website and probably Google Ads and Instagram? Like, what channels do you use for exposure?
So obviously our website is our virtual warehouse, we call it, but Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, we actually do cold calling out of Embellishr. I've got a little cold calling team that I started last year. And because when I was a real estate agent for a hot second, guess who called people to see if they needed to buy a house? I was that girl. And so I understand what it is to strike up a conversation with someone and understand where they're at. If we align, great. If we don't, cool. See you later. And so, between that to e-blast marketing to cold email marketing, we're trying to hit as many platforms as we can. We also will post ads in Mexico, in Spanish. We'll also post ads up in Canada on certain platforms. So we're trying to be as visible as possible.
Get away from my market. Canada's mine.
Just come and do a podcast, but get away from my market.
Yeah, exactly.
Room up there. It seems really big up in Canada, honestly. I was like, if it was all the way up all the way. Yeah, okay. I was like looking at a map. I'm like, holy shit. But yeah, I mean, realistically, it's just through all that, and then through my phone. I mean, my phone, when I left Rock and just from knowing everybody over the years, it rings, and I'll always pick it up as much as I can. I will say I've gotten oversaturated in the last year, and I'm not trying to be. It's a product of where we're at as a company too. So hence us hiring and trying to support everyone and be like, hey, I know you want to talk to Nicole and I want to talk to you too. I love you. But I'm going to need you to talk to this person, and I'm going to empower this person because I have faith in them to really help you with this exact issue. So
at the end of the day, they're going to be better than what you are because your goal is not to do that anymore. It's to help this business grow. So
yes.
Yeah, 100%. I think there's power into the people that we hire in our team to be able to answer the questions better than we do because we're taking other decisions, right?
Of course. Of course. And if I didn't have a team to rely on, I'd be nowhere. I mean, I can't just operate as a person of one. I'm not an army of one.
Yeah.
I think it takes a good unit of people that have different talents and kind of leveraging what they're good at, leveraging their passion, and also leveraging like, hey, but you are good at this, and this is what I'm going to need you to do. And so being a good delegator, not dictator, but fostering a good company culture within your company is really how you get people on board and take ownership of a company that's not even theirs. They will take ownership and they want to work for you. If people want to work for you, you have won as a leader. So that's my philosophy.
And I mean, hearing you talk since the beginning of the podcast, you're definitely a leader. And as I'm sure you're already aware, this is typically male dominant industry, right?
Very aware.
So how have you found being a woman in this space, and how do you find like being supported by other female owners? Like, I think it's a cool niche that you guys have there as well, but what's the feedback on that? I think that's great that you're doing it and obviously showing as a great leader.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I've had very interesting feedback. I have girls that are like, hell yeah, woman owned.
Yeah.
I have guys that are like, I'm your ally. You're a badass girl. I want to support this. I have employees that feel that way that are men. But I also have men in the industry that have made it clear that I'm not the old boys club like them and I'm not welcome. And so I have been dealing with a lot of background bureaucracy and noise from vendors and from just the traditional way of operating and doing business. And traditionally speaking, it's a very male dominated environment. And because I'm 4'11", people are like, oh my God, I saw you on a podcast. You're this small? Like, I thought you were I'm like, no, I'm not, but I've had to make my path. I have to be boisterous, be bold, and, not give too many fucks about what everybody thinks, because in the end, if I did, I really wouldn't get anywhere with the way a lot of the guys have treated me. So,
crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we definitely see that. I mean, if you look at the industry, it's definitely, male dominated, and up until recently, mostly like older male dominated. Our industry is an aged industry. It's starting to become cool now. You got guys like Ryan from Ryanet that pioneered the social media and the awareness into this space. He made it cool. He made it fun. He made the young people want to get into it for once. So the landscape's kind of changing, but it is still very, older male dominated. It's just the reality of our industry, right? And so I could definitely see the challenges, but I also think that, you being who you are and having the experience, you're able to carve out that niche and earn the respect, that you deserve, right? I mean, one of my sales manager out of Montreal, her name's Jill. She's been with the company now, I think, a year longer than me. And she's our only female sales associate. It has nothing to do with the fact that, we don't want women. To be honest, I think women do majority of stuff better than men do, to be honest, especially when it comes to sales, because they're just so much more organized and everything. Yeah. So, it's, but when we put up a job offer, there's no female applicants. Like we don't have a single female technician, there's no applicants for sales. Right. And, Jill she's strong. Like, she's very knowledgeable. She knows how to sell. She's earned the respect of her employees and her clients. And I would say she's probably one of, if not the strongest, sales associate that I have. And she's done a great job. And, there's advantages, right? It's like Sean, if I'm sending you a quote on something, you might try and grind me a little bit, right? But if you got someone, pretty woman coming up to you and saying, here's a price, you don't be like, can you knock off 1,000? There's that like stigma where you're like, I don't want her to think I'm cheap. I think that I can actually work in a woman's advantage. I truly believe
those men. Where are those men? The deal. I am literally dealing with guys that want to grind me down all the way to free. Like, hell no, it's not free, and I can hang up my phone. So there's boundaries that you have to have as a woman, and you have to have some balls, because these guys, I don't think they give a shit how good looking you are at all. I think in the end, it's what's the price point and what can I get her down to? And so, I think that if she sticks to her guns, there's no point in devaluing a good product.
No, exactly.
It doesn't make any sense anyways.
Yeah.
I think it comes with the confidence, whether you're man, girl, monkey, whatever it is. It's just the confidence that you have in the product that you're selling and the knowledge that you have with that equipment, right? So, and I think the knowledge that you have in the industry helps you be that leader that you are, right? It's not just knowing equipment, but it's knowing the industry. So the fact that you do know the industry, I thought your answer would be different. I thought your answer would have been, they were happy that I came in, and now it's fun that I bring this touch of wisdom as a female, because like Zach was saying, he posts up jobs and he doesn't get female applications.
It's right. Hard. There's not a lot of avenues for women to get into the industry.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, I love Zach, but I'd much rather have Jill come in the shop. It's just,
of course,
like,
I don't blame him.
Different. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I thought the industry would like it. I thought it would be, I thought you would have told me the opposite, where everybody was super happy that you were there. But like, obviously I get your side and what you're feeling, because it's a male dominant industry. But in my mind, it would have been the opposite. Like, hey, I love having Jill come in the shop, and like, I'd much rather talk to Nicole than Zach right now. Like, it's just, that's what it is, right? The industry is cool that way, and I think it's fun. And maybe it is going to have a switch, because maybe it's the younger audience that's coming up that's more like my mentality. But
totally.
Hey, it's I think it's great what you're doing, and definitely the fact that you have so much knowledge definitely will bring and resonate to everybody else in the industry, and that's going to change. I think you're going to have it be easier in the future.
I agree that we're definitely seeing a change. I don't know if it's I don't know if it's Ryonet or MadeLab or something, but they have some awards, and it's called like Woman in Print or something like that, right? Who is it that puts that on, where they give out that award every year? Is it Ryonet or is it MadeLab?
I actually was kind of against that award. I think the women that are winning it, I'm honestly friends with a lot of them, super amazing, and I love that people are being highlighted. My whole thing with it was that it kind of disproportionately highlights, like, well, women are already lesser, so we got to put them on a pedestal.
Yeah.
It's just a print.
Yeah, and so it's like, for me, it's like, I would love an award, for everybody, and like, whether you're man or woman. But I do understand, because there aren't a lot of females, it is hard to be like, hey, let's put it all out there. Would anyone vote for the female then? Who knows, honestly. Yeah. But I do appreciate the overall like allyship there for women. I just think that it's a bunch of men that are actually running that part, because I worked for it, so I know.
Sure. Yeah. And it's one of those, like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't kind of thing, right? It's like, they're trying to bring awareness, but I definitely understand your perspective, right? I see, both sides of the coin there, but what I'm getting at is the attention is there. And then, hopefully in 3 or 4 or 5 years, you don't even need to have those kinds of awards, because like you said, it's based on merit, and, the best, I was going to say man, but best human. It's so difficult these days. I don't know exactly how to, it's like, got to tread lightly, but it's just nice to see that, the attention's there and it's moving in that direction. And I think it will continue to.
I do not disagree at all. And I do think that they're making a valiant effort. And, I think it's a start in modernizing a very traditional, old school industry.
Totally. And, one other thing I wanted to touch on was, I could speak for myself personally. Sean had kind of touched on it earlier. the RB Digital's really evolved. Being a 160-year-old company, we've had to make changes, right? We've, making
Would hope so.
horse and buggy, carriage, metal, fixtures that the hoops go through, and then ammunition and landing gear. I mean, we've had such a crazy history. Up until not too long ago, we used to be called the Rubenstein brothers, right? I mean, I think it was when I started that we converted to RB Digital because our business moved so heavy into the digital space. But something that we've, one thing that we've really continued to really focus on in our company is our company culture, right? We want to really make it an inclusive and fun place to work, where people take pride to coming into work. You guys are kind of still in your infancy stages, and I think it's so important for any business when you're starting to like set the precedent for your culture, because once you bring in 60, 70, 80 staff and you have a bad culture, it's that much more difficult later on to clean it up and say, hey, this is not who we are. Whereas if from day one you're like, this is who we are, these are our principles, these are our values, you want in, if not, hit the door, right? Is this a focus for you guys? I mean, what efforts are you making to kind of, really mold who Embellishr is going to be in 10 or 15 years from now?
Well, I truly believe that culture is a byproduct of consistent behavior. So with consistent behavior comes habits, and you can develop good habits or you can develop bad habits, and you can do that as a leader, and you can have your entire team follow suit. So, it does start at the top, but that person that might be in your blind spots that's catching the shirts, it goes all the way down to whoever is in the overall company, no matter what their role is. And so when it comes to company culture for us, we're all remote. My entire team lives in different areas of the United States. And so we operate on things like Slack, where we have very specific channels for specific needs. And also we have a lot of fun. When we go out, we go out. I mean, I try and provide a very good balance of that work life, but it's hard because we're a remote company. And so to me, it's about how I maintain consistency in my behavior as a leader and how I create habits for the team to have, because if they have positive habits and they train other people and we bring more on, that will always kind of deduce down to more positivity, more inclusivity. And again, because you're remote, you don't want somebody to feel like they're on an island. I have one person that works for us who's obviously she's remote, but she's also disabled. And so it means the world to her to actually be a part of our team and to have collaboration and have the time to be on video, because she doesn't get to see anyone ever. She's not able to leave her home. And so it's a really big deal for me that people feel heard and good. And when I was in production, or own the production, all of our staff, I'm talking, I'm California born and raised, Los Angeles. I'm Italian, Guatemalan over here, but my staff was from Guatemala, El Salvador, Venezuela, Mexico, Vietnam, Philippines, China. I had every flag that you can kind of imagine operating in production. And you have an atmosphere of people that historically, like, their cultures don't normally, come head to head except for at a workplace. So how do you maintain a really good, positive company culture and foster that moving forward? And honestly, it starts with removing anything that could possibly be toxic or is toxic. Because if you think about your company as a pond, and everybody that's in the pond is a frog, and there's one frog that is toxic, the entire pond is now toxic. That means the frogs are toxic, right? And it becomes that habitual, byproduct of that behavior. So removing the toxicity first and foremost, and then, promoting from within is a huge thing that people don't always look at. They look for talent and try and pull, which I totally understand too. But if you can foster people from the start up, that is where you have something that's built for longevity.
Totally. And it gives them a reason to want to perform. I remember years ago, when I was in retail, I used to work for a company called Style Exchange. And I had a buddy of mine who had worked at Apple for many years. and they basically said like, hey, they're looking for, I forget what the position now was, district manager or something like that. And I said, dude, like, why don't you apply? And he's like, they don't promote within for that position. They only like bring in talent. And to me, I'm like, that's just so crazy. I don't understand. Like, no one's gonna know the product better than someone who's dedicated 10 years, right? Yeah. Now, obviously, if you can find a better candidate that can bring, traits or experiences that you don't have within that organization, and I think it is important to bring people from other organizations because they
Yeah,
will have a different perspective. But I
agreed.
think that just saying, hey, we don't promote within for these types of positions is crazy. I think they've changed that. This is going back ooh, like 18 years or something like that. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, 15 years. So, I mean, I would assume that's changed by then, but like, and that was the thing. I mean, and I went for an interview and I asked them that question and they said, yeah, this is, we're looking for bringing people in from outside the organization. Definitely a little strange.
Yeah, we've been doing a lot of that lately, implementing of bringing somebody up and bringing them up with the company and trying to be as transparent as possible with them. Being like, hey, right now you don't have these skills, but let's build these skills. Let's find courses out there. Let's teach you the skills that you need because you're the right person for that. And maybe they don't even see that they are that person, but maybe you have to be visualize it enough for them and teach them what it could be for them to want them. Right? You can't want to be a billionaire if you don't know a billionaire. I love that quote. Right. So I oftentimes help my team with a vision of where we're going and letting them know, like, this is the possibility of who we're going to need in the team in the future.
Yeah,
So if you feel like this could be you, raise your hand and come see me and let's see how we can work this out. Because I would much rather promote from inside than
yeah,
go and find people that have the skills on the outside, because you've helped us be who we are today. So why
exactly.
not help us be who we are tomorrow?
If you
Right?
have transparency, and I think that that's kind of the biggest thing,
It's
one
hard.
of the big key that people miss in their culture is overall transparency. A lot of people hold their numbers tight to their vest, right? I don't want them to know. They're going to think I'm making all this money. To be honest with you, in our production, everybody knew where we were at. Every press had a dollar amount that it was assigned to make that day. Everything was lined up for them to actually make that dollar amount. Everybody logged every iota of what they printed that day and the dollar amounts because we gave them that ability to do so. And they would have this sense of accomplishment too at the end of the day, that the company not only provided the structure, but I hit my dollar amount at
Numbers.
the end of the month when we're looking at payroll cogs. Well, guess what? There's a big screen in production that says, y'all just hit a great bonus. Good job. Because bringing people into your bottom line is actually part of fostering a good, positive company culture that can grow. um, you know, and that's really what my goal is as a leader of Embellishr, is bringing everybody that I can to where I am. Like, hey, guess what? I'm on the ink pod today. Here's what's happening. What's going on your side? I mean, we're talking constantly. And I think that that's part of why it's growing the way it is.
100%. And I think like what you said is you hit the nail on the head, but like being able to show those metrics, right? And
Yes.
being able to share those metrics with the team to where after they can get a bonus. And I feel like when you start, you don't have those metrics. So people are listening right now, maybe you're starting your smaller company. You've been doing this Printies, right? The company apparel has been doing this for 8 years. And in the last year, this is where we were able to have the metrics to be able to implement this. But I've always had this vision, right? I've always wanted to be able to share the bottom line with the team. I just, either there was not enough volume for me to be able to do that. And we were scaling the business, so we needed the cash flow. We wanted to be transparent, but the transparency was like, hey, we need to reinvest right now. There's not much that's left on the table. We're reinvesting in the team. So if you're there and you're small, don't worry that if you're not doing it, you're going to lose your team. Just be transparent enough to let them know, like, this is the vision. This is where we're going to go. And we do want to track those metrics. Let's start tracking them right now.
Right.
Right. And be super happy when there's a good month and there's profit, because this makes sense that we're going to reinvest and have more profit next month. So I think don't be ashamed if you're not able to offer that right now. If you're a small shop and whatnot, just, you're going to grow through that.
If you're a small shop and you offer that kind of information forward and it doesn't work out for someone, guess what? They're doing you a favor. There's the door.
Man.
And in the nicest way possible. And I say that, to whoever, honestly, because you don't want to drag along somebody on a journey that you are working hard on every day that is not part of their vision or their end all in any way. And that's okay. There's a lot of people that this is a stepping stone to something else for them. And the more that you're talking to them and having one-on-ones, even as middle management to where your staff is at, and then having middle management to upper management, those one-on-ones are the most beneficial thing that you can do to weed out toxicity, to weed out, get to the bottom brass tacks, the bottom line with everybody and go, hey, like it's time for us to hire, fire, train, cross train, start a second shift, start a third shift. You're able to now figure out and navigate the business much better.
Yep. Agree. 100%. This is fun. I like these kinds of conversation.
Yeah, it's great.
So just, kind of wrapping up, I mean, you obviously have a lot going on in your business right now, like RB Digital. I mean, it seems like we're always moving in different directions and have new plans and new goals. What's kind of on the horizon for Embellishr? What new projects are you guys hoping to launch in the near future?
We are launching the industry's first Salty Teas cruise in 2025. So if anyone would like to come down to Canada, we will be launching on a Virgin Voyages 4-night cruise in July of 2025. It will go from Miami to Key West, Bimini, and back. Quick 4 nights, but it's really for business owners to unplug, relax with each other, do some speed dating, some quick old speed dating, go to some great happy hours, beach parties, but get to know each other. A few years ago, I was privileged enough to go over to Portugal with Rock US and bring 50 of our clients with us. And these were direct competitors that were getting off a plane and not happy that they were standing in a room with somebody else that they felt was their competition. By the end of the week, with all of the tours we did or seminars we did, and also the relaxation of being in a different country, experiencing the culture, going and having dinner and port wine and all these great things, people's guards and barriers came down. And 2 years later, I'm still part of group threads that I can't get rid of. Love these guys, super boss. Shout out to you. But honestly, I'm still part of these threads of these business owners that at one point thought they were competitors, and at the next turn are like, man, I don't know what I would have done without this relationship I built with this guy across. I'm from the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast the last couple of years. And so my goal, is to start doing Embellishr experiences. And the Salty Teas cruise will be our very first one for relaxation, a little learning, and a little good old networking fun for everyone. And so besides that, we'll be also implementing our new appraisal software. My husband, who's a software engineer, has worked very hard on this with a in-house software team we hired. And that will be kind of the next phase of Embellishr. You'll be able to go on, log into the portal, put your equipment on. It'll have drop downs of all the different types of equipment, years, condition, this, that, and get your quick value and click the go button if you would like to sell with us. Our whole goal is just to maximize efficiency so we can, scale the business more and provide more valuable time to our clients and let them kind of be empowered with what their numbers are at. And maybe it's the right time for them to sell and they want to upgrade, or maybe it's like, okay, that's what it's worth right now. Let me hang on to it for 6 more months and let's see. Yeah. And so that's really where we're going, and expansion in service. Big service team shift right now for us, and hiring and just training, lots and lots of training and improvement. So when you asked me about culture earlier, our theme this year is cultivating a redwood forest so we can really set roots down that are intertwined very deep as a foundation. And these trees grow up very tall for thousands of years and withstand the test of time, weather, you name it. And so each year we'll have a new theme, and we really kind of dive into that as a company. And I don't know what next year's theme is going to be, but we're doing okay with our redwood forest rooting right now.
So exciting. That's super exciting, actually.
Next year's theme needs to be somewhat DTF related. I'm sure you're seeing every booth, every show. It's just DTF, 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 DTF. So
it is. I mean, DTF has taken over, and I will say that it's something that we are actively expanding our network into new equipment, into DTF, into lasers. We want to be able to be your one-stop shop in many ways in the US, but we want to be able to service you right and not do it wrong. So we're trying to sustainably grow into all that. But the wave of the future, you guys, is textile is not going anywhere. Analog screen printing isn't going anywhere. It will always have its place. DTF definitely has a revenue stream that can't necessarily be ignored anymore. And it shouldn't be. The quality has gone up. It's not the ancient DTG way where people are still scared of that kind of equipment. And UV DTF to me is probably going to be one of the biggest keys in 2025 of where we're going to see a lot of flatbed shops kind of flip into that stuff.
Yeah, we're selling. I mean, we literally just got a container 2 weeks ago, and I have 2 units left, and they're both, one's going in the Calgary show, and then one I'm putting in my showroom. It's definitely, it's what DTF was 5 years ago. So everyone really needs to take a look at it. We have, if anyone's interested in the technology, you can go to our website, rbdigital.ca, type in Toyota UV DTF. There's some really cool videos, and the applications are like endless. So. But yeah, Nicole, I can't speak for Sean, but I had an awesome time. It was really nice learning a little bit more about you and your business. I'm very excited for you. You seem like you have the drive to do some really big things in the industry. You've already done them, but I think just continue on that trajectory. I'm sure that we're going to have to sit down and figure out some ways that RB Digital can work with Embellishr. So we'll have to get some pen to paper. But yeah, thank you very much for your time. This was a lot of fun, and I hope our audience enjoyed spending time with you as much as we did.
I loved it, and I loved all your questions. Honestly, it was refreshing, so thank you. It was great.
Awesome. See you guys, everybody, next week. Ciao.
Bye.
This was so fun. This was really good.
I'm just going to go walk them quick. I've had to go for like an hour. I drank like